We are back for part four. It's just going so great, man. We should just have a show. You'll be the
A
star.
weekly podcast.
Yeah, right. But Nick, thanks for continuing this conversation, and I want us to transition now into a lot of guys and gals on a daily basis. I know for a fact are having a really hard time, and they know or may have heard of the signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, but they wake up feeling yucky. They wake up
Mm.
feeling like junk. They carry every day. They are carrying 100 pounds of weight on their shoulders, and they are struggling to get through the day. They know what it feels like, and some of them even have it identified as being some kind of trauma that they're suffering from. And you and I both know sometimes it entails bad life choices that we make, that we
Mm.
create these circumstances for ourselves. But they're really hard circumstances to get out of sometimes when you dig yourself too deep, right?
Mm-mm. Oh,
So
yeah.
I want to ask you in your journey so far how you've managed to get through some of these hurdles. Like, how do you overcome not wanting to put your foot on the ground at the first step in the morning, and when you fling your blankets off, just having more of a I can do this mindset as opposed to I don't want to do this mindset, because
Mm.
me waking up this morning is just a constant reminder of the pain that I'm in every single day. And I just wish, not that I have an active wish to commit suicide or to die by suicide, but I just wish I didn't wake up. You know,
Oh
like
boy.
it's not an active suicidal wish. It's just so, my God, I wish that this would have been resolved when I went to bed last night, and I would have never woken up, so I didn't have to face this again. Okay.
Exactly.
So once again, I'll turn this over to you, and that's just a springboard for you to do what you do. Go for it.
No, that's a beautiful springboard, Doc. It's a softball, and because so once someone once I was starting to feel better, get healthier, actually notice because what you just described felt like 2.5 years. But we'll break that down, and it's not. Someone that you just described, I see more people like that you just described, who are in that dark place, in the dark night of the soul, who are in the treading water to stay alive each day, from sunrise to sunset. It's like, wow, another day I made
Mhm.
it, even if you didn't necessarily want to make it. So I remind people that I was so there. And when someone says your positivity now, your energy now, it's too much. It's just like I can't be around it, right? Because energy attracts energy. A guy like myself, if I'd run into me in 2017, 18, I would have wanted to punch me in the face, because there is no hope. Screw you. You do not understand.
Mhm.
Like the thought of so So now I want to go back into that. I shared a video that I posted in November of 2018. Just any random day. I took the kids to school. Wife went to school. 9 a.m. There I was till 3 or 4 p.m. Maybe I didn't have counseling that day. I had a dog. That little dog, the healer, was a big part of the story. But I decided one day to film myself, and it was a 5 minute in my car. Could not understand why I was sad, why I had everything and I hated life, why I wasn't getting better. And it was powerful. I think it's one of the best videos I've ever put out, because it's the message and it's so symbolic of that time. Not this time when I'm like, yes, let's work out. And by the way, this is not daily. The ups and downs of an injury will carry on for life, but we're gonna go about what tools we use along the way. Because when you're in that place, let's go back to that place, we're just getting out of bed. is an accomplishment if you decide to do that. You don't want to wake up. You're not at the full end of suicide because you're kind of in between. I'm going to let this thing play out. Hope for time, hope for a miracle. Someone will rescue me. So I call this stage a throw me a life preserver. Something's got to change. Someone, something, somehow things will get better. Meanwhile, you're doing, I was doing everything I could to externally find my savior, my counselor, a book, a podcast, without actually doing the internal work I was avoiding. So what I did, and I want to go back to that depressive state when someone's in that state for the guys and gals and myself that was there every day, um, was not only what I did, but the actions that I finally took. Because even though you're not committing suicide every day in this state, I found a way to self-sabotage. And that is exactly what a lot of people are doing when you're depressed. The thought of meditating when you're depressed, get out of here. The thought of working out, are you kidding me? It is so incomprehensible. You just want to, you know, light up a cigarette and blow it in their face and say, work out, what? Go work out on this. Because what's the point? Because there's despair, there's sorrow, there's lack of hope. It's like, why? Why would you work out? You know you need to. Why would I make dietary changes now? All these things seem insurmountable. They're impossible when you're in this stage, or at least where I was at, excuse me. And I only speak for myself, folks. But the stage I was at is I don't know if I even had enough motivation to want to get better. And then the daily things I did not serve me, only further reiterated where I was at. I was driving nails further into the coffin by continuing to make poor choices into the bad habits in hopes of something changes. But it was how I was coping as well. So one thing I knew I did not want to do in my recovery, and like a lot of people, is acknowledge and face it, right? I don't want to work on it. I don't want to face it. I want a reality checkout. So we turned to alcohol and drugs. We turned to binge watching TV. So those were certainly all options. I wasn't drinking anymore. I was using marijuana way more than I actively do now. So while it helped me check out of reality, calm down, meditate, it also kept me stagnant because I was using it a lot. So it helped, but it was a big band-aid that I used. Now it's not a band-aid, it's an assistant. You know, it's an aid, not a band-aid though. Um, and its use has become, it's evolved. Like any good medicine and patient, you have to find the balance. Uh, um, for some, a glass of wine is beautiful. For many, it could never happen. And for some, the glass of wine turns into three. Can't happen. So I turned to listening, anything to distract myself, my brain, from my current reality, anything. So I turned to podcasts and books. But and let me go see if there's some YouTube video out there. You know, I know my job is to get better. You know, maybe you're working, going to work, you're just kind of grinding along in the motions. And I see the look on people's face. And you know where no one can hide PTSD? Side note, in the eyes. I could walk up to someone and go, they may not even be diagnosed with it, but it's a look. You share a look, as if, to quote Alan Watts, as if it's as if two thieves walking down the street need no introduction. One look at each other and they know. And the thief's example was said by Zen masters. They know, like one look at each other, aha, aha. So you can see that look in people's face, but it's just a grind of going through the motion. So as I kind of focus here a little bit more, I distracted myself, but in some ways that I found that were slowly helping. And it was pointing me in the direction, Doc, podcasts and mental health videos, But again, when I listened to them, I found myself going, oh, this is me. Oh my gosh, this is my life now. I'm broke. I'm injured. So I blended a little spiritual stuff in here, and I don't want to go into that. But because some spiritual consciousness maybe expanded, or maybe my desire to and instincts were to follow certain things, that was very helpful. Now, you got to understand, folks, if you're watching this in America, there's a good question, good chance, and forgive me if I go off, Doc, I got to stay focused here, but we're talking about the rut. I grew up under the common Western Judeo-Christianity. Now, you may be a Christian, you may be Catholic. The point is this: under religion, I was suffering. I made myself suffer because I had failed God or something. God didn't rescue me. Um, why do I have substance abuse problems? Why am I suicidal if I'm a man of faith? So I struggled a lot with my religion. Some people, my faith, some people intensifies. Mine had a paradigm shift. And so what my forgive me, folks, stay with me here, is instead of hoping and praying daily and nightly like I was, which I believe in prayer, I believe in meditation and focused thoughts, of course. For me, I don't want to lose anyone. When my paradigm switched to the rescuer of God outside of myself to God, I am a part of God. God is a part of me. I am a part of the creation, whatever that looks like. God to me was an older grandpa with whiskers and a cane, constantly judging. These were poor perceptual things from being raised from an old school Christian kind of mindset. Okay. Nothing wrong with these things, too, by the way. I was sick. But the way I looked at it is I had an increased guilt pickup. I had increased abandonment. Like, why have you left me here like this? Okay. You've heard this story a lot from people who are Christians, Catholics, or people of faith that have something horrific happen, and bleh, you lose your faith, and you're like, oh, wow, a lot of faith you had. I didn't lose it. It altered. And it took a long time, but the books I was listening to, Eastern philosophy, which, ooh, that's horrible, and other ways of how do other people look at the world. That's what I was interested in. I'm only looking at the world at 39, suffering, suicidal, lost my job. My family's just hoping and praying I don't off myself any day. I want to off myself. I don't. So I find ways to self-sabotage myself daily. I don't want to get better. What's the point of getting better? Everything I worked for in life just was snap, gone. Why would I work out when I'm trying to not kill myself? I had these thoughts running through my head. Why would I go to church when God obviously doesn't care about me? So I became a victim. I became, poor me, a martyr in some ways. And I noticed a lot of people with mental health who are still in the despair, still in the dark, who've lost the hope. Maybe they feel and see the light somewhere down, but it's so unattainable at this time that you become a victim. Now, I lose a lot of people, even on my own social media platforms, when I talk about individual responsibility with physical and mental health. Now, I got to be careful because I'm not a doc, I'm not a counselor here. I understand, though, personally, that working on your mental health and exercising and wanting to eat right, meditate, pray, breathe, breaths work, while depressed is next to impossible. I understand that. So, second part of my own perception on PTSD and mental health, guys, was I was anti-medicine. So I was a anti-big farm. I actually am very anti-big farm as the answer for everything, guys. But I also recognized that chemically, I may not be as stable as I should be. Chemically, I love science. I love molecular biology. I love neuroscience. These are things that changed for me too. Because when you have everything and you're on top of the world and you are Tom Brady. Okay, I was Tiger Woods and Tom Brady in my profession, and you overnight lose all of that, and now you're hanging on for life. It's called a mind messing. There's stronger words that I've used. but it's called a mental health crisis. And so that's where I found myself. But um, where I was going was, um, yeah, I understand not wanting to do these things. When life is good, when the bank account is full, you're popular, things are going well. Yeah, let's do it. Let's take on that project. And you know what? I am going to lose 20 pounds. And you know what? I am going to read 3 more books this year. Um, you're under the right mindset. And then the next day comes. Well, if you find yourself month after month, day after day of despair, depression, suicide, dealing with PTSD, not knowing that it's PTSD, these things are ridiculous. So I chose to check out from reality. I'm not advising this, but for me, I went straight to my headphones and I decided to listen. I listened to podcasts and I listened to as much as I could to distract me. I did. Honestly, I'm just being very honest. But sometimes I would do it walking because walking to me wasn't exercising. But I said, what the heck? You're anxious anyway. When it wasn't depression, it was this anxiousness that I can't even put, words. I put words down. You can't even talk. You're so anxious. So I said, go walk. I hated the thought of it. I didn't want to look at the house I was in. I didn't want to look at the same surroundings. I didn't want to look in the mirror. I couldn't sit with myself. I walked. I actually started walking, just walking. Maybe it's a mile. Or maybe I was like, oh, I got 10 minutes left on this amazing video that had nothing to do with mental health. Maybe it was on Buddhism or Zen. Maybe it was on a mental health 40-year-old in Croatia and Indonesia and Bangladesh. How did they handle it? What were their cultural and societal beliefs? What were their religious beliefs? What were their philosophical beliefs? How did they go about getting support? Because I just knew I was 39 in America, a white boy, Christian, military. Yep, put me in every box. I'm none of those, by the way. I mean, those aren't me, and it's in wholeness. Those are very small parts of me. So I explored the world. I wanted to know everything I could about how a human being could go from the top of the apex to suicidal, and so obsessed with suicide. I worked out 6 days a week and was the epitome of fitness and health to a guy who wouldn't brush his teeth for a week. A shower? What's the point? Putting yourself together when you're depressed. I got out of bed. You're welcome. Slow applaud because I'm not doing anything today. And then you get angry. My anxiousness came out in anger, and I know I'm all over the place. So I'm reminiscing those 2 horrible years where a lot of people might find themselves. I was very angry. And what I didn't know, because of where I was at, I was a victim, feeling bad for myself. Rightly so, by the way. Anger is okay. These are all emotions of grieving. I didn't realize I was in the 5 stages of grieving what had been the death of an old me, along with my death of my job, or who I identified with as a person. That was my identity. It was gone and dead, and I was trying to reinvent myself, and I didn't like myself. And these were things I didn't know. I liked the captain, Nick Lorenz. I liked coach Nick Lorenz. I liked another achievement, Nick Lorenz. I didn't like Nick Lorenz with depression, Nick Lorenz with substance abuse problems, Nick Lorenz with his secrets in his head, the guilt and shame for his past, gambling. I didn't like Nick Lorenz when he wasn't wearing the uniform. So I did everything I could. So this was developed through childhood too, and just a life. But so I started walking, and just moving my body helped me breathe. Breathing helped me calm down, distracting myself. But my counselor even said, Nick, when do you think? And she rarely said many things, but she said, I said, well, you're the weirdest counselor. You don't counsel a whole lot, but she's good. She was the best. She said, have you ever thought, this was how sneaky good she was, and maybe you're like this. She goes, that's amazing, very interesting. She'd listen to me, all the weird stuff I was into. Did you know that in, ancient China, she would just listen, because I did more talk therapy. Help me process things. And in addition with EMDR, of course. But I remember one time she goes, have you ever considered going for a walk without your headphones? And it was like she had just said, it's time to give up your binky. You know, it's time to give up your blanket, your pacifier.
Mhm.
I looked at her, Doc, you know, like, are you insane? Are you nuts? I didn't. But I'll never forget she said that. And every day I put those headphones on was another day I heard myself going, you know, you could just walk with your own thoughts.
Mhm.
Maybe concentrate on paying attention to those, seeing if you're making progress on self-worth versus self-love. You know, I didn't know there was a difference. I just said I had no self-love. You can't, I had no self-worth because of how I defined myself in my head based on my childhood to military to mistakes I made. I was all about my mistakes, and like many people are. So we hide those. Anyway, my anger, my anxiousness came out in anger. I released a lot of it on my wife and kids and anyone I could. And guys, gals, that's probably very similar to what you're doing. Under a lot of other circumstances, you would be talking to a divorced dad. Um, but everything that's right with humanity and kept me alive. When I looked at humanity, I saw things from a cynical lens, like maybe you have right now when you're depressed. You colors fade, good smells go away. Life itself seems gray. A sunny day isn't black and white. Energy levels and depleted to negative. I tried to sabotage my marriage in every way possible outside of infidelity. I did things to my wife that were cause for she should have left me. And I say should have, I would have probably left me.
Mhm.
She didn't. And the more angry I got at her, because I knew I was bad. I was going down and I didn't want to take her and the kids with me. And I knew that eventually I'm gonna probably kill myself. And that if they were divorced, if I was trying to protect them, but what I was doing is self-sabotaging, guys. This was one small way. So my wife is not a normal human being. And you know, she taught me what unconditional love is. She she uh she didn't teach me, she showed me. You know, and I've been told by other guys and family members who are struggling and divorced and who have been down the same road and didn't have the same outcome but are alive that I'm lucky, that I'm lucky, that I should be divorced, that any normal human would have left me. But what they don't know that she knows is, you know, all the small details of our relationship and how much I loved my kids, you know, love my kids and my wife. She knew those things. She knew my real heart. And she knew my soul, and she knew that what she was dealing with at the time was not me. She's not too deep. I mean, you know, not like me. She will, but she'll doesn't. You know, okay, Nick, you're going off on something. But that was a big piece. Was the more I threw anger and despair at her, and the more she combated it with patience, understanding, and love, the more it gave me hope. And that was a big part of my recovery was she and those kids were worth fighting for. And I don't know if you have something worth fighting for, but I've always considered myself a warrior. Some of my favorite books, right? Why do you think the movies like Braveheart are so popular and Gladiator? And that's just from the 90s and early 2000s. I'm 40, okay? These movies are powerful because deep down inside us all, no matter what society and culture tell us to think or how we should look at genders, and to each his own, we all want to be a hero. And some females, despite what people might say today, want to be a part of that story of a man's hero journey. They want to be worth saving and worth rescuing, if anything, worth fighting. Not that they need the rescuing, but to know that the guy would do that. or their partner would do that. It doesn't have to be guy and girl. Let's not get stuck on these details, okay? But I wanted to be that hero, and I still believed I was. And so my battle in my mind, it slowly changed my battle. I was a Marine captain paramedic, and my battle was to do the best I could at work to impact the citizens and community in which I served, and take care of my guys, and create the best working positive atmosphere I could, and create camaraderie and bonding, and health and longevity, and just all the great things about the fire public safety. That was my mission, and being the best dad I could. And when it became about survival, getting out of bed didn't seem like an accomplishment to a guy who was doing so much more. So that was a mind screwing, that I got out of bed and I didn't kill myself today. And that's a win. That took time to get used to. It took time to get used to the fact that my wife's not going anywhere, and that we're in this for the long haul. Once I accepted that and realized that the things that I loved and valued and cherished in life were the same things I was trying to sabotage myself from, to protect them and myself, because I didn't think I was even worthy of them. Again, another sick childhood, thought from life. So when my battle and my mindset changed, Doc, to, yeah, suicide's an option. Man, did I want it so badly. But I wanted my wife more. I wanted my kids just maybe a scotch more at that time. And then, because I'm still competitive, and even in that despair and suicide, if you're upset, you're more depressed because you want to get better. And that's the sucky thing about depression. You don't want to be depressed, and you know what you have to do to get out of depression. You don't have the energy or will to do any of that. Thus, it's a cycle back to just surviving. Yeah, of course, I know I need to stop smoking and put the bottle down, if that's the case. Or hell, I know I need to just go for a walk and exercise today, and maybe stay away from Jack in the Box. It's too damn easy. It's too damn convenient. And then we go for the comforters. I did this, and I still do this. So I still go for the easy route. I love working on myself. But anyway, so we know what we need to do. You don't have the energy or the willpower. I lost it all. But every day I listened to something. I heard a story. I heard maybe a knucklehead like me, a gal like me, a mom, maybe a woman or a man who had never put on a uniform, talk about their experience with PTSD, depression, and it sounded exactly like everyone else's I heard. The more I realized I wasn't alone, the more I realized that the most hardened warriors that I had given, I put on a pedestal as worthy of PTSD, when those guys were breaking, when my pals and warriors and SEALs, and of course, these are peeps I ran with, and they are the most hardened warriors, that we had a lot going to be police officers and firefighters and many other things. But when I saw them opening up, Jocko Wilcox, David Goggins, many others in the SEAL and Ranger and SF Marine community, going, hell yes, I've suffered. Yeah, I lost a buddy to suicide, and I'm sure as shit never gonna let that happen again. And here's my new mission in life, and I'm a part of Wounded Warrior. I'm a part of this group and that group, and what? It gives me goosebumps, because I remember thinking,
You just
hide
Googled.
it, Nick. You were a warrior. You were a badass. You were all those things, and now you're just this dude trying to survive. Maybe shave this month. Maybe throw on some shoes once in a while, and not just Crocs. I love my Crocs, but everything changed. But when I found out that, oh wait, you mean I'm not alone? Oh wait, and this is a fact, guys. The thought of the loneliness, and it's just me, ate at me, until I decided to go, okay, let's see what's going on out there. Until the news reports would come in from my guys, so and so killed themselves. What? No, 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 no. I'm the one in despair. I'm the one that's hurting. That can't happen. when I found out and read books that someone would send me. Someone would send me a podcast, and I'm listening to, again, I needed to hear it from William Wallace, the men. There's amazing women out there, but for me, I needed to hear it from men. I've always had a desire to seek some alpha leader, because I've had a poor relationship with my dad. And so I always looked for that approval of what a man is. I saw that in the military and the fire service. I always trying to find a father figure. But when I found these guys out there, and their names, that were broken, it made me realize that, okay, I'm not alone. If these guys can get broken, then anyone can. And if they can get better, then so can I. What did they do? A lot of the stuff I've never done. I have never done. But it's not about what they did. It's about finding what's going to work for you. So when I share, I was a bookworm. Maybe that's not your cup of tea, but I read every book I could to better understand what I was dealing with. So for that first year and a half, yeah, I avoided PTSD. I mean, I would stumble upon it. I would listen to somebody, maybe share a story. I was beginning to become familiar. Heck, I even enrolled at ASU because I was going to do what you're doing, Doc. I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm not even going to baby step it. I'm going to get my PhD. I mean, I was a little lost. But I wanted to study psychology because I was reading about it. I was listening to it every day. I had to understand the physiology, the neuroscience, the biochemistry behind it. I had to know because I love that. When we understand something, we're less afraid of it. If you're afraid of flying, learn everything you can about aircrafts and flying. You will never be afraid of flying. You might then be afraid of driving. But so I decided to have the courage. I remember going, Nick, you've prided yourself on courage. You've shown very little of that, part of more negative talk, which was true though. And I remember saying, you know what? You don't want to read about it. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And you can run for the rest of your life, or you can do what you're supposed to, turn and face it. And by turning and facing it, I wasn't just facing it, I was facing myself. I was facing my own demons in my head. I was facing the person that was ultimately going to save me. And that was me. We all want the credit and the trophy and the awards for all the things we do, the attaboys, and they're well deserved. But when things don't go well, we immediately point the finger. Something happened to me. A circumstance happened to me. I've changed that. I'm like, wow, this happened for me. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, a lot of things took time to start changing, but it all happened within. So did I read a lot of books? Did I listen to podcasts? Did I see I wasn't alone, number one? Did I see that recovery was possible? Did I hear it? Did I know it? Okay, I'm starting to believe it can happen, but here I am a year into this thing and I'm no better. I would even argue I'm worse. Okay, well, that's real time, Nick. You've prayed intensely. God's not coming down to save you, at least physically. I rejected and I wouldn't have allowed it anyway if it had happened, because I wasn't, no, thank you. But I have the answer. Nope. It's like the other guy on the roof begging God to come save him in the flood. 3 boats come by and he doesn't take one of them. Well, I had every life preserver. But a part of this journey is the beauty of it, if you're not in this stage yet, is you're going to get to have to know yourself at another level that you didn't know possible. You're going to actually expand your consciousness. And if those words seem weird and new age to you, they're real. Okay, we all have a limited consciousness of ourselves, and we're in and out of it all day, depending on where our attention's at, right? We've got the floodlight and the spotlight. Our spotlight is Doc and I right here. My floodlight is hearing the bird over there, the pool running. That's my floodlight. It's bigger. It's more of a scene, but my spotlight is on my conversation with Doc. So start paying attention to your floodlight thoughts and conversations in your head, what you're saying to yourself. Take notes. Oh, so getting back to the baby steps I took, I was reading. I was a bookworm, not even a reader. I just couldn't get enough. And it's a great way to distract. When I had to perform, go to work, I did have other jobs, do the dad thing. These are all part-time crap jobs. Very grateful to have them, but I was not well. So you go in workplaces where maybe you can blend right in, just minimum wage work. And anyway, but with PTSD, I would get fired or not show up, or I'm like, I just got fired from a nothing job. Like,
Mhm.
what? Um, I didn't sabotage that at all. Well, yeah, when you don't go, you're gonna get fired. And you don't call, you don't gonna get fired. These are things that I couldn't believe were happening because that's not me. So part of it, you find yourself under performing and doing and saying things that were never seemed possible because you're sick, you're injured. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off here, but so when I started reading, I discovered journaling. I've always said, Nick, you kind of like writing, don't you? Oh, I hate writing. Ooh. But I have a lot to say, and I've always been good at writing papers. In college, they would say, hey, we need a such and such words, or 7-page, this many words. I'd be like, seven? I got 30 pages here. So my wife was my editor, and she's always said, Nick, you've got to write something. The key is we'll get a good editor. We'll clean up your vocabulary and grammar and your run-on sentences, and we've got something here. When that day comes, we'll see. I do journal though, and I'm hoping that those journal entries, sometimes a paragraph and sometimes 2 pages, will turn into that story, turn into that book someday. Someday, but it's not my main passion and goal right now. So I'm okay saying someday and putting that to the back burner because it's not my main priority right now. But I started journaling. What did journaling do for me? It made me stop, pause, and put thoughts to paper.
Mhm.
And to reread those, which I still do, wow,
Mhm.
that has made it worth it right there. Journaling to yourself is a gift you give yourself later.
Mhm.
It's a deposit that you're going to give back to yourself later. That's all you're doing. So so journal one sentence. First thing. Oh, I was big doc on breaking my habits. I was in despair. I remember sitting in a chair for 4 hours. I couldn't sit in one place or anytime. I was so depressed that I said, I'm going to sit in this chair in my office, in my room, in the dark until the kids come home. I sat there until the kids came home. I was playing a game with myself. I was so pissed off, so depressed. Actually, I liked getting angry because it gave me a little sign of life again, Doc. So, anyway, I decided to play games with myself. I didn't realize I was doing this, but it was Nick, break a habit today, not tomorrow. And I wouldn't. Stop drinking 6 cups of coffee in the morning. Try a cup of tea. But as I was paying attention to more of my thoughts, rereading my journals, listening to books, discovering I wasn't alone, time was going on. And then I was slowly learning that I am my savior, not spiritually. Okay. You have a savior, Jesus or Buddha, believe in that stuff. Faith is so important, but that my faith required action in myself. And the action seemed impossible when depressed, but the action to decide to start walking while listening was big. That was a step. The action to start journaling when I didn't want to write my horrible, wicked, nasty thoughts. And sometimes it would say this, forgive me, folks, F you, you piece of screw this. I do not want to do this. This is the dumbest thing ever. Have those notes in hard black ink. And sometimes it was poetic, at least for me. It's probably standard 3rd grade vocabulary and writing, but it was beautiful. It was real. It was honest. And I needed that. I needed to have that come to Jesus with myself. And it's the ultimate last piece where you go, oh my God, I've projected, I've externalized, I've begged the saviors, the counselor, the doctor who couldn't save me, the meds that aren't working, this and that. And it hits you like a ton of bricks. And for me, it was a couple years in. What are you going to do about it? What have you not done about it, Nick? And this was my journey. And it happened a lot more subtly in between. But it was when I said, own it, own it, own it. Badge of honor time. You got a USMC tat. Everyone knows you were Captain of the Year, Captain America. Own this shit. Stop being a coward and being afraid and pretending it didn't happen, getting better and sweeping under the carpet. That was my plan. In 2020, it was going just fine. I was doing that. January, February, March, pandemic hit. Best year of my life in all areas, personal, financial, marital, everything was going really well. I don't mind saying that, despite whatever this thing was. A lot of fear going on, rightly so. So I was having my best year, really recovering. Never going to talk about that again. And I said, Nick, a part of the ownership was sharing that. No, we're not going there. But this was a piece that I would suggest people do much earlier, and that is open up and talk about it. And this is why I entered social media. It took me 4 years to open up and talk about it outside of private counseling or with private family and friends. Private. I retired. What are you talking about? I just retired because I had 20 years in government. All true, all facts. 20 years public safety. My wife and I did some reevaluations of life, decided to move on. It was her term to go back to work. I'll stay at home with the kids. That's not the story. But it made people go, oh, okay, anyway. So how about that game last night? Perfect. My story's working. Then 2020, I heard that voice just saying, nope, you know this isn't right. You know where you're supposed to go. You know why you went through this and are continuing and forever will go through this. It's a journey. You know how much farther you have to go. And what is one thing I said in these 3 years of getting better and recovering, Doc, was through despair and through the suicide and depression was someday, Nick, this will be why. This will be why. So maybe it's this conversation. And people go, oh, wow, you're going to write books and do what? No, it's not about mass. It's about one person that you may never know you affected. There's a dude out there that I'll never know. In Europe, I listened to, it was in somewhere in Eastern Europe. I was listening to, anyway, big part of helping not kill myself, listening to that. I'll never meet that person. They'll never know that. And that's why I decided, hey, Nick, your story was perfect. Or at least, people thought, share it. And when I started hearing, what do you know from younger guys that I was working with and girls, what do you know? Your life's been blessed. It's been perfect. Oh, that's when I went, oh my gosh, don't be the hypocrite. You need to start sharing with these people. And I did. And then I did the video online and it took off. But what I didn't know, Doc, and this is where I'm going, is guys, if you have the courage quicker than I did to share your story, it's actually a part of the healing process. I didn't know this. I was one during my recovery, I would even look at other jokers like myself and go, gosh, that's all they talk about. Oh, look at how involved they are in mental health. Look at this guy. There's a friend. Ooh, he's all about PTSD. He's got his warehouse set up. He's really helping people. He's really, not me. I'm moving on. What's next? Am I going to go coach? What can I do now professionally? As I continue to get better and just, bad phase of life. Maybe someday when I'm old, I'll write a book or tell the kids, and maybe they'll read some journal entries. That's like the last pillar of recovery is talking about it, sharing, opening up. So I did it to help others, but what I found out, it was, once again, helpful to myself. So it's okay to do things for yourself, because this was another big piece for me, Doc. Working on myself seems selfish. I'm a giver. I'm a provider. That's all I've ever done. give, provide, and serve. Not nobly, not holy, not holy, not with any, hey, did I tell you I volunteered another 100 hours or I was coach of the year? None of that was the purpose. I think it's pretty clear why I did those things. I do love serving. I do love people. I love kids. I am very passionate about kids. Always have been, always will be. I protect and look over kids because of what I've been through as a kid, because what I see kids going through today. So they're kind of my number one passion. They're still impressionable. They're not as biased and tainted and corrupted as us adults. But anyway, it's also important that they be told different things that I was, about mental health, about my thoughts, about meditation, about prayer, about stress, and about anxiety. And those aren't shameful things. And these aren't for losers. They're not for wimps and the weak, as I was told and brought up. Um, so for me, it was baby steps. I fought against myself. I was my own worst enemy. And then I became my best advocate. Then I became my number one resource. And what I didn't realize I had done was picked up a many tools along the way, and my toolbox had grown. And so my initial toolbox was coping. Maybe it was working out. That's what I always went to, a workout, because a workout does a lot. And now I'm here constantly telling people through my own social media platform is, where do we start? We start with exercise. I don't want to exercise. Great. I didn't either. Do you consider walking exercise? Well, no. Well, it is. We're going to walk.
Mhm.
I don't want to walk. Then you're going to walk. It's like we're going to walk every day. So exercise was my life, and now I've realized I've gone back to that. And if you look at what it does, again, physiologically, it's a absolute must. I say food might be the foundation, or your thoughts, right? You go to the seed. No, just exercise, because it's one, we all know we can, we how to do it. Two, we can all do it. And three, that was a part of my life that I eliminated, and that was a big mistake. So once I got back to moving my body, energy levels slowly increased. I was more aware of my breath. I thought, well, gee, you jogged 3 miles today. It took you an hour and a half, but maybe I won't just eat another bowl of ice cream. Now I'm talking about food and stuff because food to me has become medicine. So I'm very conscious of what I put in my body. Now, for me, I had to be. For me, I had to be. And this is when I really took my mental health seriously. So that's not everyone's biggest issue. For me, it was because food affects me. I'm very sensitive with food, um, energy levels, digestion. So I'm not high maintenance, but when I have the option, I choose certain foods and movement. But reading, podcasts, groups, counseling, and doc, you're a counselor, you're a doc, you're a doctor. Folks, there were months, if not a year, where going to counseling was actually the hardest thing I did, because it's the last thing I wanted to do. I didn't cancel a lot, but I hated it. There were days I hated it, and it would wreck me for days. And even my wife knew that. Hey, you have counseling Tuesday at 3? Okay. And she would know. He's out of commission that day, and maybe there's a hangover tomorrow. When you're processing these things, and you're doing the work, you hear about it. So I'm not trying to be a tough lover that you got to do the work, but I am at this point optimistically encouraging people that you're going to see the most benefits when you start the ownership process of it. When you don't be like a lot of knuckleheads like myself, who come from a background of machismo-ness and bravado fake, and even if some of it's real, of what I've learned about bravery and courage today is from the most hardened warriors that you watch movies about, okay? These are guys and gals that you go, wow, they're going to be on time. Nobel Peace Prize. They're broken. But the most courageous thing they did was not go into a firefight, was not pull their fire truck over and go to work. That's easy. That's easy to show up with people, adrenaline, and do brave stuff. That isn't brave. It's not courageous. Not one firefighter I would even think or hesitate about not giving their life to save someone else. It's as if something slips out of our brain, our mechanism for survival, and goes, I'm going to die saving this person, and I'm happy to do it. It's amazing. And I don't know one police officer, not one, I don't know them all. I don't know one soldier. 25 years of doing this. I saw it. So it's not a theory, it's not a philosophy, it's a fact. It's a fact. So they'll die so much for you that if they don't die on the job, they're going to die from suicide. Okay? They're going to die slowly from destruction of not dealing with that job correctly because they're giving so much of themselves up. So that's what I know about those people. But when I realized those people, then the most brave thing that they could do was talk, open up, share, and say, hey, by the way, yeah, I know you're impressed with all of the awards, medals, and achievements, but I want to show you my number one achievement. I want to show you the most thing I'm bravest. Well, what? You're a warrior, or you're my idol. Maybe you're a doc I want to be someday. It doesn't have to be a GI Joe, but for me, I identified with GI Joes because the William Wallace's Bravehearts of the world, and I said, if these guys and gals are saying the most courageous, bravest, hardest thing they've ever done was share their story, open up, and impact lives now, it just was a mind-blowing concept for me to go, the fire service comes to an end. And for me, it was 10 days a month. So what did I do the other 2/3 now that I have 100% of my time to do? So again, easy to show up on a fire truck, a police car, a Humvee, get to town, do work, kick a door in, get an award. Maybe it goes your way, maybe it doesn't. But it's really hard to talk to strangers, open up and say, I'm broken, but here's how I fixed myself. And here's how I'm currently fixing myself. But I've also recognized that I'm being broken is a gift. It's not something like in the past where the critic would go, you're broken, you're no good. Just remember, the next time you hear the critic inside you guys, ask yourself, stop the critic, which is you, and say, who's criticizing the critic? When's the last time my critic was criticized? And who gave this critic authority to criticize me? Because this critic was you. I know this is weird. Stay with me here. This is how I had to visualize this stuff. I'm talking to myself, putting myself down. What is this person trying to hide? What is this critic trying to not expose?
It's essentially like the Muppet Show, right? The Muppet Show.
Yes.
The Muppets, and you have the guys up top criticize, right? And it's a third party criticizing those guys in the balcony. But you went through so many things there that I wanted to be able to at least just say something on it. Then I want to summarize because I know that we're eating up on time. Is that
please do summarize this.
Well, it's hard to because you have so much good stuff, man. I tell you. But I work with a lot of people who have gotten awards. You talked about awards and medals and accolades and commendations. And a lot of people that I know, they feel worse because it was a call that they didn't want to go on or that they did as part of their job. And they just saw it as part of their job. They didn't do it because they want to be recognized for it. It could have been a shooting involvement, could have been running on a child, anything like that at all. But the award makes them feel dirty. They want it, but they don't want it. You know what I mean? It's like,
absolutely.
Hey, you did a nice job. But then when it goes above and beyond that, they start to become a little bit resentful, and they say, I don't want an award for doing my job. This was
yes.
Have you seen that? Have you ever experienced that part of it where some people don't mind, a lot of people do.
Yeah, because one person's giving you an award for something or group to highlight, showcase, maybe demonstrate teamwork, some good things. The recipient isn't necessarily sharing those same thoughts,
No,
those same feelings. They're still recovering. They're still processing. They're still going over the odors, the sights, the sounds, the jumps, that was,
and
that's not
you tie that
Sorry.
to the military even, right? And you know,
Oh,
there is this kind of blanket statement where people believe now they should tell all veterans, thank you for your service.
oh, right.
Whereas that sounds really nice, a lot of veterans that I know find some people say, hey, you know what? Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. But you don't know what I've done. And my soul isn't clean. I don't feel
Hmm.
like you should be thanking me for doing what I had to do overseas. You know, and so it creates a lot more trauma for those people that have things that they haven't reconciled with. You know, for people who maybe, you know, and this is no offense to anybody who stayed stateside, but for anybody who had the opportunity to stay stateside and maybe didn't experience some of that other stuff, they may say, yeah, okay, thank you. That's really nice. That's nice of you to acknowledge. You know, you stand at SeaWorld and they clap for you. You know, you go to Disney and they let you in first. Who knows, right? But for the people who have been in a mess, in a wash, it's such a hard place to be when people, you know, so sometimes you get folks, I know a lot of folks that decide they don't ever want to go to the VA for services. They don't want to be associated with veteran stuff. And then I
Mm,
see flip side people that have the stickers, the hats, the shirts, everything else. But they still don't want to be thanked. You know, they're proud of their service, but they're proud of the camaraderie that they made with people that they served with. They want and they cherish those bonds, just like you did with your fire crew, just like you did with the guys that you served with. But it's not necessarily that they want to be awarded or rewarded for it. It's just that they want to be left alone. They want to have that pride, but yet still not necessarily have the recognition of things that maybe some things they wish that they never had to experience or that they wish they didn't need to do, you know. So this is hard. I mean, what you talked about today, Nick, is just phenomenal, and truly, I think that you've done a lot of work, and you're still on a journey of doing a lot of work. But I think that it's also important for us to recognize the unsung heroes. You know, you talked about warriors, and you talked about, you know, the GI Joes of the world and the hardened people. But when I think of that person in your story, I think of your wife. I think
mhm.
family that stuck with you to support you, because I've been down this road many times with guys that have pushed and pushed and pushed to try to rattle the cage to get rid of the people, to shake them loose
Yes.
so that
Yes.
they could have they could have a justification for the fact and say, I knew you were going to leave me anyway, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Aha. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
And then once you do that self-fulfilling prophecy, then you're free to do whatever you want. You're free to drink yourself into oblivion. You're free to go womanize. You're free to go die by suicide. You're free to do whatever you want to do because you proved you right. It was all a proving with you,
Are
right?
you an expert on this or something? I
I read a little bit.
read a little bit. Yeah. You are spot on. I keep going. This is amazing.
But it is something that, I mean, you know, time after time, you take Nick, but I could take factor X and put them in Nick's place with the diagnosis and with the profession, and I will have a recipe that I could share with anybody that cooks the same way. It
Yeah.
bakes the same way because people experience and feel this the same way. And the family, I mean, I just look forward to meeting your wife one day. I mean, she just sounds phenomenal, and I hope that she does, you know, I don't know if you've spoken to her about doing a segment as a married couple on this, but it would be
So
so tremendous.
I so Doc, you got me a little excited. I've often told my wife that in my own novel, in my own book, she's the superhero of
Yeah.
this book. She's the main character.
Hmm.
I'm not the main character of my own life.
Yeah.
And again, I've been cautioned with good advice to not put my wife on a pedestal that is, just that makes me less than or inferior or dependent on her. A lot of my own recovery did come from not relying on her love. When I had no love to give me, I needed it from her.
Yeah, but
But
what,
anyway,
what is marriage, right? Marriage is not 50-50. Marriage is 10-90, is 80-20, it is
it's true.
15-85, right? I mean, you only
Yeah.
have 100% of something, but on any given day when you are down in the dumps at 2%, she may be able to pick up 80%, and then your kids pick up, 18%. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like
Oh,
it's
beautifully
a
said.
system. It's yeah.
Beautifully said. And here's why I want my wife, her name's Erica, to eventually get more involved to speak, because I know that there are two sides. There's many sides to this story, but for every Joe Schmo like myself and Jane Doe, there's a spouse, there's a partner, there's a kid, and I've in the past, in my earlier videos and writings, was giving all the prop, the credit to the support I had, because it's true. Many people I encounter today do not have any team that resembled the support mechanism I had. I have to give that credit, but I still end up having to do the heavy lifting and work. They
Yes,
didn't do it, but my wife is. I want her to start speaking. I want her to talk. She is. Um, you'll just see she's not. She's she's perfect, and I mean, it's the truth. And I'm not saying that. I have 20 years with her. She is, her humbleness, I read a lot on Zen. I read a lot on these romantic, poetic, ancient philosophies and maybe spiritual stuff. I read it, I talk about it a lot. She lives it.
hmm
I always say, you're the Zen master I've always wanted, and you don't even know what Zen is. I don't know what Zen is, and she certainly has no clue. And I said, that's what makes you a master. You don't know it. You don't talk about it. You don't think about it. You are it. And that is kind of Zen, if you know anything. I don't know anything about it, but it's so.
She sounds
Anyway, so
phenomenal. Like, I think, unfortunately, we're gonna wrap up again
yeah,
this
yeah,
session.
please, please.
But thank you for sharing today, and this is always fantastic. So we'll do it again.